I'm hosting the first.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are very excited for the Queen Exchange series live today. This is Queen Exchange is a LinkedIn series where we exchange thoughts, ideas, and insights of experts across industries. Today's topic is a really important one, which all the companies definitely must look into, ponder upon, and take action on, which is about how to build respectful and inclusive cultures. And for discussing this topic and having the Q&A, we have none other than Sumit Agrawal, who's the strong advocate of diversity, equity, and inclusion. He has shattered so many barriers, including and impacted so many countless lives, despite of having cerebral palsy. An accomplished entrepreneur and LinkedIn top voice of India, Sumit has made so much impact across hundreds of thousands of people and actually reached over 100 million views in connecting with industry experts, persons of disabilities, and concerned parents. So, Sumit, welcome. We are very excited to have you here. Please please give your introduction as well and share more about your journey on how you have come across as a expert in diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So I have a I have a theory, right? We have all been told lies since we were young, and the greatest lie of them all is that vulnerability is a weakness. I think vulnerability can be your greatest strength. Behind every dark cloud, there's a silver lining, and I believe that that is the theory everybody should ascribe to. If you look at the word disability, there is the word ability within the word disability, right?
Right.
I believe that within every person with a disability, there's the ability just waiting to be discovered. If you look at 4-year-old children, right, they're effortlessly running around, they are playing around, while there was this little boy who was struggling to tie his own shoelaces. And while the world might have seen a very struggling boy, this boy saw himself as a mountaineer who had to climb and scale up his own personal little Mount Everest.
Right.
I am not supposed to be alive today, let alone sit in front of you and advocate for a world of inclusivity. I believe that life is a gift because I survived 4 major surgeries.
Wow.
And in the middle of those 4 major surgeries, being born in 7 months, being told that you won't survive, in the corridors of those sterile hospitals, colorless hospitals, I found the purpose of my life.
That's amazing.
The purpose of my life was to make the world a little more better than it already is. The purpose of my life is to make people with disabilities not just accepted but celebrated for their unique abilities. My mother was a very successful lawyer. She quit her job for me without a second thought, and she knocked on the doors of 30 schools. I got rejected by all of them. They said, "You don't belong here. We don't have a place for a person like you." I still do not understand the meaning of what they meant by a person like you. But my mother was very adamant, and she was like, if he wants to study, he will study in a mainstream school, or he won't study at all. And that was the beginning of my journey.
Wow. I think like the positivity that you come with And the fact that the attitude that regardless of any dark cloud that comes your way, and you got to fight it and actually make some purpose out of it, is the attitude that every person needs to have. I think that's where you get all your strength from, and it's very inspiring to hear your story, Sumit. There's so much to learn. I think coming to the topic of how to build inclusive cultures, I want to know more, since you have such a vast experience in terms of what strategies you think the companies need to adapt, or what do you think works more effectively at workplace to build inclusive cultures.
I, through my journey, have always learned that one thing is the key driving factor when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Rather it be ageism, rather it be disability, rather it be gender diversity, rather it be LGBTQ. Everything comes from a place of human connection and transformative empathy. What do I mean by transformative empathy? When I talk about inclusion, you should know that if you're looking at workplaces, if you're looking to hire people with autism, you should have quiet rooms or silent rooms where they can decompress the information that they have processed throughout the day. People with autism like repetitive patterns, they do not like change. That's one disability. The RPWD Act mentions 21 types of disabilities now, including visible and invisible disabilities. If you are hiring somebody with cerebral palsy, people with cerebral palsy undergo fatigue, right? So you have to build work schedules around their structure of life.
Right.
For example, they want to work 4 hours, then take a break of 1 hour, then again work for 4 hours, then take a break of 1 hour. So build schedules accordingly. If you want to hire people who are not able to see, and if you want their physical presence in the office, you must realize that they make a mental map of the office
Yeah.
when they enter the building. So, for example, if the water cooler is 3 steps away from the desk, make sure that the water cooler is not moved without informing them.
Right.
If somebody is hiring a person who is not able to hear, there must be a sign language instructor who must teach the manager how to use sign language. It doesn't take much, it takes only 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks of instruction, right? And most importantly, it's not important just to attract people with disabilities but also retain them. And for that, all of the co-workers, regardless of their role or hierarchy, must be trained on the facets of DEI.
Yeah.
DEI is not a one-time program, rather it's a gradual and continual learning process and improvement process for everybody, which
I totally
percolates
agree.
from the top
Yeah.
level of the organization to the
Right.
bottom level of the organization. And I believe in every organization, it is not just the responsibility of the DEI head to take care of the DEI programs. Rather, the CEO of the organization should be the main force behind the DEI.
Actually, that I totally agree with. Like, it's not just a one time thing, but actually it needs to be a ongoing efforts that companies need to make. And like you said, that it doesn't have to be just the head of the department or the company, but needs to be from the leadership as well. So what role do you think the leadership should play in setting the tone for inclusive and diverse culture?
When it was the pre COVID era, the barriers were more focused on physical accessibility, building ramps,
Yeah.
um, having voice tools for people who are not able to see, people who process information a little slower can be given the slides a little bit early than other people so that they can go through the information and have more time to decompress the information. But after the pre-COVID era, I think in terms of disability as well as in terms of gender diversity, people must focus on digital accessibility. It is not just for people with disabilities, but for people with ageism, for
Yeah,
people who have joined the workforce after a long period of maternity leave or a work gap.
yeah.
Digital tools must be given to them. They must be trained on the basics of digital tools, and digital accessibility has now taken a front seat so that anybody can work from anywhere. And
Right.
with the help of I think work has become faster and more accessible to everybody. But we
Totally.
must make sure that nobody is left behind.
Right. So since we've been also working since over 8 years in gender diversity, right? We have before COVID, while we were actually approaching companies on how they can actually provide flexible work hours or work from home or work from anywhere options. That time it wasn't acceptable as much, but I think after COVID things have changed. We have adopted technology and being able to provide, but obviously it's not at the level that we need to, or to bridge that gap. I think we are still far away from bridging that gap. So definitely companies do need to take that into consideration while we are working, all of us together working towards the efforts of bringing diversity back to work. Now, from the company standpoint, since you work with a lot of companies, what are the common challenges organizations face trying to build that environment, and how do you suggest them to overcome, or how do they actually try to overcome them?
See, when I talk about especially Fortune 500 companies, right? Every company is different, right? And the challenges that come with it is different as well. For example, if you talk about disability or if you talk about reinstating military veterans into the workforce, right?
Right.
Again, right, in the private sector, they have been, subjected to a different kind of a discipline and a regimen. Now, when you bring them into the workforce, it becomes a challenge for them to adapt to the corporate culture. Number one. Number two, what happens is in case of disability programs, any HR or a DEI head is starting a program. When the person leaves the organization, the new person comes and the new person is not updated on what is going on and what has been the updates till now, what are the data points that we should look at, what is the guiding map that we have at at this moment, and the program is dropped.
Right.
Third point is, if you had one person with a disability and if you have a bad experience, organizations tend to do away with the entire program in general, right? That in itself is a challenge. The biggest challenge that I have towards every company, be it a Fortune 500 or be it a MSME, is the identification of talent pool,
Right.
because it starts young. For people with disabilities, it's a transitional phase. If they are not getting the proper education, for example, if I talk about India, right, I can say that there is around 7 crore people with disabilities in India. If you look at the population of India, right, 50% of them are out of school. Basic education, not even schools. I'm not even talking about college. So
Yeah.
if it starts young, that you are secluded when you are young, if you do not
Right.
have access to education, how do you become a part of that talent force or the workforce? So the major challenge is identifying and having a streamline of candidates in the pipeline and building up that pipeline for the companies for major roles, entry level roles, retail workshops, maybe shop floors. You can get a lot of people with disabilities at running shops, being in the hospitality industry. But when I look at the roles of a manager or a director, I hardly see any person with a disability there.
Which is a very valid point where you bring up that at the start of education itself, one needs to, I think our ecosystem needs to be built in a way where we don't, we make it inclusive enough that 50% dropout doesn't happen. I think it starts at a very early age, then even while we talk about organizations, but we need to actually reflect upon even the schools and this ecosystem around it on how we can encourage that better. So that's definitely something that we all together obviously have to work towards. Um, Now, in terms of initiatives, I think you've done a lot of initiatives to drive and promote diversity. Can you share a few examples on how you do that?
So I have done a lot of workshops where I help people with disabilities and people with autism and train them on the basic aspects of AI. For example, let me tell you something, right? I stay in a place called Salt Lake in Calcutta, right? Now there are a lot of people here in Salt Lake where there there are a lot of people. The sons and daughters have shifted to US, UK, and during the COVID era, people who have aged a lot, they couldn't order the groceries, they couldn't book the vaccine online. For example, I don't know if you remember the website, but if you are a visually challenged person who is not able to see, right? And what happens is if you are trying to book a slot for the vaccine, there is no voice activated mechanism which guides you that, okay, this is how you book the vaccine. You literally need to have someone to uh, do it for you.
Yeah.
Till today, there are a lot of food delivery apps on the mobile devices. If I tell you to close your eyes and book maybe a dosa or a idli or whatever you want to eat, pizza or ice cream, it will be impossible for you to book because you are not able to see.
Yeah.
And there's no voice activation that says that you have selected a dosa or you have selected a idli or you know. So this is my point. When you build for people with disabilities, when you design for people with disabilities, you make life easier for everybody. Because
Right.
voice search by Google was supposed to be used by people who are not able to see well, right? But now I also use voice. Okay, Google, schedule an alarm at 6 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
That really happens.
Yeah, I think right now, even in the startup culture, right, there are a lot of social impact driven startups that are coming up. So I believe that we are definitely going towards a direction of a better and more diverse and inclusive place where at least people are thinking about making that kind of social impact related initiatives or drives or startups where they can make that impact. So we are
See,
get yeah.
if I look at this startup sector also, right? Social impact driven sector. There are it's more focused towards areas like Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, and Hyderabad. If I look at areas like Kolkata, Mizoram, and Northeast, the entire area is ignored. So there is no diversity within diversity itself. In fact, what I am doing is I am hosting Calcutta's first diversity, equity, and inclusion summit in Eastern India, right? On 30th of September. So This is one of my initiatives that I'm doing. I have done a lot of training workshops for people with disabilities on how they can build their brands on LinkedIn and how they can reach out to the companies and apply for a job. Because at the end of the day, whether you focus on gender diversity, whether you focus on LGBTQ, whether you focus on disability, the main root cause is dignity, right?
Yeah,
You want dignity and respect from the society, not out of kindness, but out of the respect that you deserve, right?
of course,
Equality,
definitely.
equality is not a privilege but a right.
It is totally. That brings me to a really important question, because dignity and respect is definitely something which is important, right? But how do you, or how would you recommend others to handle situations where individuals may be unintentionally exhibiting biased behavior at the workplace or even outside? What would you suggest for them?
See, if you look at types of biases, right, there are a lot of kinds of biases. I'm sure you must be aware of horn bias, conformity bias. For example, people with disabilities face a lot of conformity bias, right? People have preconceived notions that they are not able to do anything and they just ask questions to confirm that, okay, how will you do it? For example, when I sat on interviews after my MBA, right, in fact, a lot of people said that I won't be able to do an MBA, and I scored a 9.5 CGPA, and I topped my university just to prove them wrong. Feels good to do that. So when I sat for interviews, people said that how will you go and meet clients? You have an MBA in marketing. You can't go and meet clients. After my sixth interview, I said that you can keep your jobs. I don't want to be a job taker. I want to be a job giver to the economy. Right. I opened up my own agency and now I have global clients all across. So you have to take that leap of faith. You have to take that plunge.
That's amazing, because I think, yeah, that really, like, when you started out first, right? Like, making a positivity out of a negative situation. I think that's where it is like, I don't need to find a job. I will be the one creating jobs, is where you nailed it. I think that's where all the people need to be inspired from, in terms of that we should not victimize or think that there will be biases towards us just because I have taken a break, or just because I have certain disability which may impact my performance at workplace. But we need to change our personal situation as well, turn it around, and come up confidently to talk to the employers that way. I think that's very, very important as well. Now, in terms of the companies, right? If I think we are coming close to 20 about end of the session. But if you had to give tips, three tips to companies in terms of how they can build a diverse and inclusive culture, what would be those tips?
See, first you have to identify what are the areas in where you can propagate diversity, right? It's not just a a one page plan that okay, today you decide to hire certain people and then you become a diverse company, right? There are a lot of companies who say that okay, 8% of my workforce are women. That is not something which you should be proud of. You should be proud of the retention rate that you have in your company. You should be proud of the culture that is there in the company. You should look at data, but data doesn't really define you. Data is something which helps you identify your end goal. Data itself shouldn't become the end goal. Number one.
Right.
Number two, if you look at creating cultures, right? It should be a focused plan where you identify how you train your co-workers and how you create a conducive environment where if you hire a person with a disability or if you hire somebody from the LGBTQ, how will they support those people? because the issue is not hiring people. Again, the issue is the retention and the strategic plan. That okay, there are a lot of companies who tell me, okay, we have hired 1,500 people with disabilities. I say that okay, all of them are entry level workers. Where are the people with disabilities or gender diversity in the middle management? Then I get no answers from the
Exactly. Yeah.
companies, right? So don't do tokenism, right? If you want to build cultures,
Right.
build something that will sustain over a period of time. Number three, basic issues of microaggression are common through all forms of diversity. For example, I have somebody on my team, uh, and one of my clients told me that, okay, why do you have somebody who has a kid on your team, right? Who has a kid? Why don't you hire somebody who can do the job, because she's handling the kid and she's doing your job. So and that might take up her time. How will she handle the kid and how will she handle the job? So these are basic microaggression issues that come across in gender diversity also. Even if
Correct.
you have a small child, people will question your abilities to take care of your child and do the job at the same time. It happens at home also, it happens at the workplace also. So you have to have that point of empathy where you understand, okay, a person's ability to do a job is not affected by the fact whether he or she have a child or not. So
Right.
all of this, right? For example, one of my clients told me that, Sumit, you are a person with a disability. Why are you charging me so high prices for handling my LinkedIn account? Why don't you charge half the price? You are a person with a disability. You should be grateful for whatever you are getting, right? I just got up and left, right? And um,
I think
you
that's the most yeah, absurd thing I've heard. Yeah.
and after a few days, I got a car, right? I got a car. I paid up the full money upfront. I called up this person and I thanked that person. Let's see, today, because of people like you, I have reached a certain amount of place where I wanted to be, because people like you drive me to be successful more further. So if you want to criticize me more, feel free to do it, because you people drive me to achieve greater height.
That's great, Sumit. I love the persistence, the energy, and the positivity that you emit. I mean, I think we all need to learn from that. And definitely the points you shared as well, empathy and all the other things that you've shared. I think it's great for our audience to also learn from. And we would definitely want to have more sessions, in fact, to cover a lot more topics. I think it's a very huge and important topic that. Where definitely companies, as well as on how to motivate and build confidence amongst the diverse community as well. So we I will definitely do one more session with you. I'm saying it out loud over here only. uh, but for
Would
now,
be
thank you
happy
so
to.
much for your time. I we had absolute pleasure, and I hope you had a good time as well.
I would, I would love to talk about in ERGs and how ERGs help you build up that confidence and motivation and open spaces and safe spaces, because ERGs in companies is a great driver. But in fact, if I start talking about it, it might just take another hour. So maybe some time later.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
just to be mindful of time, I think we are almost done. So we'll wrap it up quickly. Thank you so much, and it was a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much, Nehaji. It's my privilege to be here. My message to the community is, just believe in your ability, because within every disability there is ability. The foundation starts at home. Find people who believe in you, find that circle who empowers you to move ahead and accept you for who you are. You need to be celebrated, not just accepted.
Definitely. Thank you so much. I think we both are actually driving towards that purpose, and I'm glad that we are aligned. And we need many more hands to join us. So it's great to have each other and build this community together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Namaskar.